As a parent myself, I often get asked by other parents if their child should get a tonsillectomy. So if your child or grandchild is experiencing similar issues, please pay close attention to this video. Tonsillectomies are one of the most common surgeries for children. Appendectomies are also quite common, but appendectomies are usually done in emergency situations, so the necessity of the surgery is often clear. On the other hand, tonsillectomies are a bit different. They are typically performed to alleviate discomfort. When the tonsils swell, they can cause pain and make it difficult to breathe at night, which is why the surgery is done. Both the tonsil and the appendix are often viewed as organs that aren't crucial for living a normal life, which is why their removal is considered. So before deciding on surgery, here are 3 things I want you to check. When tonsils or adenoids become swollen or inflamed, the typical initial approach is to prescribe antibiotics. However, if this treatment doesn't effectively resolve the issue or if the condition keeps recurring, doctors may suggest a tonsillectomy. But let me briefly explain what tonsils do. Tonsils are lymph nodes located in the back of the mouth and at the top of the throat. When your body is not in good condition or has a weakened immune system, these lymph nodes can become infected and swollen. When the infection persists or recurs frequently, it becomes chronic, resulting in enlarged tonsils or adenoids, known as tonsillitis, adenoiditis, or hypertrophy. Essentially, it's chronic inflammation. To reduce this inflammation, doctors may prescribe antibiotics or steroids. However, this isn't always the ideal treatment for children because these medications are considered strong. I'm not saying they're bad, but it's true that antibiotics are widely used. The tonsils serve as our body's first line of defense. When we inhale air, the tonsils, along with the adenoids, act as an initial barrier against the pathogens. So when these areas become infected, that's what we call the common cold. These organs protect and filter our body from viruses that could cause respiratory problems, as well as from foods or allergens like pollen. When the tonsil and adenoid detect these invaders, our immune system kicks into gear. However, for kids, everything is often first-time experience, so they need a learning curve. This applies not only to flu viruses, but also to new foods they try for the first time, as their bodies may have an immune response to unfamiliar foods. This is why kids tend to get sick more often than adults. Think back to preschool or kindergarten. When one kid gets sick, it often spreads to entire classroom, and the cycle repeats. However, this doesn't happen as frequently in adults, even in office cubicle setting. It's not because kids are weak, it's a simply natural process of their bodies learning to recognize and fight pathogens. We often see healthy kids running around with yellow-green mucus in their nose, right? Let's take a look at a study. According to research conducted in 2020, tonsils tend to be more vulnerable to respiratory viruses such as rhinovirus, adenovirus, influenza, and coronavirus. At the beginning of the video, I mentioned 3 things to check before deciding on surgery. The first one is CBC Differential, which looks into more specific aspect of white blood cells, assessing your immune condition. The second test is serum vitamin A level, and the third is a vitamin D level. I strongly recommend checking the result of these 3 tests because they are a crucial factor in virus immunity. When these levels are lacking, children tend to experience swollen tonsil and chronic inflammation. The tonsils might be swelling not because they need to be cut out, but possibly due to deficiency in the nutrients necessary for the immune system to fight off virus. So they might be swelling repeatedly because of that. Tonsillectomy is not about cutting them out just because they need to be cut out, but rather a let's remove them because they are uncomfortable type of treatment. It's important to understand this difference before making a decision. Ultimately, the decision will be made by patient. I'm not here to say what is right or wrong. I'm also not trying to change your mind. I'm just here to provide you with information. So let's take a look at the CBC Differential. This is the most common blood work you get when you go to the doctor's office. we can suspect inflammation based on the white blood cell count. For example, if a child goes in for tonsillitis and the CBC comes out normal, the doctor might say there's no infection. And if it's an acute infection but the white blood cell still came out normal, and the doctor might say there is no infection and they're not sure about the cause, but since the child is in pain, they might suggest removing the tonsils. You know what I mean? The white blood cells can be divided into 5 types, and when certain ones are relatively higher than the other, you could suspect certain condition. For example, when lymphocytes are higher, you could suspect a virus infection. When eosinophils are higher, you could suspect an infection from allergen, parasite, or skin infection. Like this, we can suspect that there is an immune response in our body. So according to this study, children with swollen tonsils are often linked to viral infection, even if the exact mechanism of tonsil swelling isn't fully understood. In a 2017 study, 57% of a patient with an enlarged tonsil had at least one respiratory virus, and 23% had 2 or more viruses detected. So even if your overall white blood cell counts are normal, but your lymphocytes and eosinophil levels are higher, you could suspect that there might be a viral infection, even if it's asymptomatic. And here's the surprising part. In children under the age of 5 with tonsillitis, 100% had a viral infection, and yet doctors often prescribe antibiotics. But antibiotics are not that effective against a viral infection. While antiviral medication are sometimes prescribed, but as we've been experienced during pandemic or case of shingles, they aren't always very effective. So antibiotics are not an effective treatment, and antiviral don't always work when tests show no infection but the tonsils keep swelling, and it often leads to conclusion, since you're uncomfortable because of this, let's just remove them. But if the root cause is a weak immune system that leads to infection, is it really beneficial to remove the tonsil, which are part of your immune system? To boost children's vital immunity, vitamin A and D are very helpful. That's why it's important to test for these vitamins. You might think, why talk about vitamin A and D? They are very common. But remember, vitamin C is also very common, and yet we cannot live without it. Antibiotics don't build our immune system, they just fight off the bacteria. They have nothing to do with our natural immunity. It's crucial to understand this distinction clearly. Moreover, like vitamin A, vitamin D is also crucial for viral immunity. Vitamin D is well known for boosting immune system, right? If vitamin D is lacking, they can't fight viruses effectively. Vitamin D activates a peptide called LL37, which is an antimicrobial substance that fights against all kinds of infection, making it fantastic immune boosters. Additionally, vitamin D generates dopamine, so it helps children avoid smartphone addiction or gaming addiction. Of course, I'm not saying vitamin D will get them off from the phone, but anyway, also vitamin D is essential for building strong bones. So it's very important for children to not only study indoors, but also play outside and get plenty of sunlight. Removing the tonsil through surgery is irreversible, like most surgeries, right? That's why surgery should ideally be the last option, especially if it's not an emergency surgery. So I hope you will check the points I've mentioned and carefully consider whether surgery is necessary. If everything I've mentioned seems normal and there are no issue, but the symptom persists, consider trying Eastern medicine. Conditions like chronic ear infection and pediatric hernias can be treated without surgery. I hope today's video has been helpful for those considering surgery. And remember, health is wealth, so invest in yourself. This is Dr. Sean, making health easy for you. See you next time.